Hello everybody, I'm Thomas and welcome to the 10th video of this series in which I'll be playing through the Hadrian's Wall solo campaign. Today I'll be attempting fort number 5, Onum. For the fort it reads, Onum was thought to have meant stream, ash tree, or rock. A dedicatory slab detailed the 6th Legion were responsible for the initial building work. For the fort rules, there are no additional fort rules, which is nice. For the fort goals, I have to build the large granary, the large hotel, the large road, the large workshop, and score 75 VP. That sounds brutal. For the additional challenge, if I get 10 plus victory points in each of the 4 attribute tracks, I will get a builder and a civilian. As you can see here, I have a builder and a resource from the last fort. I was able to beat it with the additional challenge. I'll post a picture up on the screen there. It definitely took me a couple of tries, but I managed to get it, so it makes this hopefully a lot easier. Let's get started with year number 1 though. Got the 2 rival cards over there. We'll see what my supply is for this first year. Not bad, not bad. Put that up there and grab my 2 cards. So either filled temples or completed wall guard sections. I'll go wall guard sections. I do like the wall guard sections quite a bit. That'll give me an extra 2 servants. And then because of my board, I get a resource for my resource production. And yeah, we're on our way with year number 1. So it seems like with this fort, I'll really be needing to focus on this stuff over here. So I'll be trying to, I think, just push the fort as far as possible and just trying to make sure I get the hotels, workshops, and roads as consistently as possible and hoping everything else just falls into place. But we'll see. So I'll go ahead and start out by at least placing a builder on the fort and we'll get that started. After that, I don't want to just spend my 1 soldier right off the bat, but I don't want to keep spending my builders too. Okay, so I'll spend 2 servants on mining and foresting. That'll get me a little bit of resource production and a resource, which is always nice. And I'll just spend that resource right away on the wall, which will get me another civilian to do something with. I mean, I'm probably not going to change my tactics too much to over here, so I'll probably do the traders track a little bit, performers track, probably ignore the priest track. I'll probably go down enough just to get the gardens, and then this track that I can never pronounce correctly, I'll definitely go for if I need the baths. Hopefully I won't. If not, the courthouse I do like to try to get. And then of course the patricians on the bottom is always good to get some of, especially because scouting is pretty handy, I think. And it's really nice. It's weird not having extra resources on everything, but it seems like this will be a challenging one, so I'm curious to see how it's going to go. So I'll start by spending a civilian down here on that track to get me a builder, which I'll just place onto the wall, or onto the fort, sorry. And then use another builder on the fort. That gets me to level 2, which then I have enough to spend a builder, a servant, and only 1 resource to build the small hotel, which will get me a civilian back. Considering I filled in no cohorts so far, maybe I should do a little bit of that. So at least spend a soldier out there and fill in the left one. And there we go. Okay, so I'll spend 1 civilian on the performers track to get me a builder, and then I'll use that builder on the training grounds, to send them out onto the wall guard, which will get me a bit of discipline. I will then spend these 2 resources on the wall. That'll get me nothing, and then another civilian. Okay, this may be a weird idea, but I think it might work. So civilian on the trader's track to get me a servant. And with the 2 servants, I'll call form to get a builder and then immediately spend that builder on the fort, which will get me a civilian back. And then I use all 3 civilians on the patrician's track, which will get me a resource and a soldier. And that's pretty important. Because soldier I can spend on the wall guard to let me fill in another cohort, and I'll go with the right one. Then the resource I can use on the wall. That'll get me a bit of renown and another cohort to fill in. So I am completely safe from all picked attacks this year because I have 1 on each. So that's actually the end of the year now. This isn't going to be too suspenseful since, yeah, it's center. They can't do anything. And that's the end of year 1. So I'll get some new rival cards over here. Get rid of this card and see what my supply is. Whoops, before I give me my supply, I just realized I forgot to give myself Valor for defeating that pick. So let me do that first. Now let's see what my supply is. Not too bad. Another center card. All three cards that have been drawn this game have all been center cards, but you know, I guess that's just RNG. So either resource production or completed citizen tracks. Both of these are good. I think citizen tracks might be a little bit more something I'm going for, so I'll give that one a whirl. Slide that in there and knock over all my stuff in the process. Tear it apart the board, and this gives me an extra servant and a resource. Then of course I have my hotel, so I get an extra civilian and 2 resources from my resource production. With that, we're on our way with year number 2. So goals for this year, I mean, it would be great to build the small workshop, but that's, I guess, not terribly expensive. It also would be nice to build the medium granary, maybe. I guess that's more of a year 3 thing. So maybe I'll build the precinct, small temple, and a workshop this year and try to get some more cohorts going. It seems like not a terrible idea. So let me just start putting it in action, I guess. I'll spend a builder on the fort. That'll get me to infrastructure level 3, which is enough to get the small workshop. Spend 3 resources to get that. And that will get me a builder back. I'll spend a resource on the wall, and that'll get me a civilian. And I'll spend that civilian along with that one on the trader's track. That'll get me to level 3 and get me a builder. Now that I'm level 3, I can spend that civilian and that servant to build the small precinct, which will get me a little bit of piety, a little bit of resource production, and of course a resource. Okay, I'll start by spending a builder on the fort. Then that gets me a civilian, which I'll spend on the priest track to get me a servant, but mainly to bump me up to level 1 so I can spend that servant, this builder, and that resource to build a small temple. Will get me a bit more piety, and now I'll probably wait to fill that, just to see if I have extra people at the end to do that with, but so that's 2 of the main things. So I guess I got everything done I wanted to. I got the small precinct built, the small temple built, small workshop built. So at this point, I think I should just maximize my cohorts because there's only 2 picks attacking, so I'm actually in an okay position with 3 so far, but I'd like to get at least maybe 1 or 2 more cohorts down. Okay, so I'll spend this builder on the fort. That'll get me a little bit of discipline, and then I'll spend both soldiers up here on the wall guard, which will get me a bit more discipline. The discipline will get me a builder, which I'll immediately send to the training grounds to go out on the wall guard. At this point, left or right is my best options. I'll go right, I guess. Then with 2 servants, I'll send one of them out to do a bit of mining and foresting. And then the last one I will use to fill in the temple over here, which will get me a bit of piety and a favor. And that piety will get me another servant, which I will use up here for mining and foresting. With that, we're done with year number 2. With 2 picks attacking, I feel relatively okay. As long as they don't hit left or center twice, I'll be okay. So left, that's not a good start. And center, so that's good. I survived again. So honestly, off to a good start so far. So I get 2 renowned from that. Or sorry, not renown, valor. And that gets me a soldier to start out this next year with, which is always handy. I feel like soldiers are in pretty short supply, and yeah, I don't mind having extra. So let's see what my supply is for this year. Not bad. Another center card. I feel like there's been a lot of those. So for my 2 cards, I can either do completed cohorts or final disdain. Final disdain I feel like is a bit easier. Getting all the cohorts completed is tough, especially because I normally like kind of keeping them even as I go along. So that'll get me an extra soldier to start with. Then I get 3 resources. Got my resources. Then because I have a small hotel, I get a civilian. My small workshop gets me a builder. And with that, we're on our way with year number 3. I think the main things on the agenda for this year is building the medium granary. Of course, that's going to be probably the first thing I do. Ideally building the small road. And I don't know, maybe the small gardens. Yeah, I'm not for sure. The courthouse doesn't really need to happen until next year. So yeah, let me start out by building the medium granary because it's going to need done at some point. That's usually something I do during year number 3. So fill that in, and now I can start progressing down that track a bit more. So what next? I guess I need to get a little bit further till I can build the small road. So I don't do this often, but I'll spend a soldier to progress down the fort. That'll get me a civilian. I will spend that civilian. I'll spend that civilian and another one on the priest track. That'll get me to level 3 on the priest track and get me another servant. And then I'll spend a builder on the fort. That'll get me to level 4. And now I have everything I need to build the road. So 2 servants, a builder, only 1 resource. I can build the small road. At this point, I could either choose piety or discipline. I think I'll go with discipline. We'll see if that's a mistake, but I don't think it is. So I'll spend 2 resources on the wall. And that'll let me fill in a cohort, which I'll just go with left. Then what next? I guess I'll spend both of these civilians on the priest track. The first one will get me a little bit of piety. And the next will get me a servant. So I'll spend the servant to do some mining and foresting up here. And get me some more resource production and another resource, which I'll just spend that resource on the wall to get me a bit of renown. Yeah, I don't think there's another way I can get a cohort, so I'll just send both of those soldiers out onto the wall guard. That'll get me a bit of discipline. And with that, we're done with year 3 with 4 picks again, be attacking. So 4 picks, I got 2, 1, and 2. I still have my favor from the small temple, so let's see how this goes. We got left, right, and left. Okay, that hit perfectly both on the left and right. So I am sitting pretty good with the picks this fort. That was year 2, so I get 2 valor from that. All right, that worked out pretty good. I still have my favor left, so that's always handy to have. And we'll see what my supply is for this year. All right. And then let me grab my 2 cards. So we have large buildings or total gladiator strength. That's a tough one. I think large buildings might be the one for this fort. I don't know. Might be a risky play, but seems like the way to go. Yeah, I don't like the gladiator much anyway. So I'll get an extra servant and resource from that. Then because of my board, I get 4 resources. Sweet. Then my small hotel gets me a civilian, small workshop gets me a builder, and then the road I can progress down 1 track, which I'll just probably go renown since that's the lowest, and also gets me a civilian. And with that done, we're on our way with year number 4. Main goals for this year, I would like to build the courthouse, probably the small gardens, maybe the large hotel, maybe a medium precinct first. I don't know if the medium and large precincts are worth it, but especially because I'm not really going for resource production, so I don't know. Well, regardless, if I want to build the courthouse, I need to progress down this track a lot, so I'm gonna spend all 3 of my civilians to go down that track. That'll get me nothing. The second will get me a soldier, and the last will get me a bit of discipline, which down there gets me a builder. Then I will use a servant, a builder, and 1 resource to build the small gardens, which will get me a bit of piety. Will boost me down the trader's track. I'll go down the performer's track and down the priest track, which will get me a bit more piety, which will get me another servant. And yeah, small gardens, that is done now too. I'll use a builder to go down the fort. That'll get me another civilian, which I'll use on this track to get me another builder back. At this point, I'm at a pretty good level to build the courthouse now. So 2 servants, a builder, and 2 resources, and I can build the courthouse. That will get me a bit of renown. And then since I am at least level 4, I can use this ability to get a servant. I'll at least spend 1 soldier on the wall guard to complete a cohort. I'll fill in the middle one. So now everything's at least at 2. I'll spend a resource on the wall to get me a civilian, which I'll put on this track, which will get me a little bit of discipline. The main thing is now that I'm level 6, I can swap out a servant for a builder, and then a builder for 2 servants, so I just end up with a net of a servant. I'll then spend a builder to go down the fort a little bit. I'll spend 2 resources on the wall. That'll get me some renown, and I can fill in another cohort, which I'll go with right, which will get me a bit more discipline. Okay, I can spend a builder on the fort. That'll get me a civilian. Spend that civilian on the priest track. That'll get me a servant. Put the servant up here, and then spend both of those servants up here, and that'll get me another resource production along with another resource. So I'll spend 1 soldier on the fort, and then spend 2 resources to fill in the wall a bit. That will get me a civilian, which then I'll spend the civilian on this track to get me a soldier, spend that soldier on the fort, and then that will get me a bit of discipline and a cohort to fill in, which I'll go with the left one. That'll get me a bit more discipline. Then because of that, I get a builder, which I'll just spend on the wall guard. What year is it? It's year 4. So spend them up there. Then I also want to do scouting. I think that's pretty much it. I could do scouting and then I could tweak another cohort. So maybe that is the move. I'll spend the soldier to do a bit of scouting. Do something like that to get me a resource, which I'll just immediately spend on the wall to fill in the middle. And I also get a servant, which, oh, I guess I could send them up there to do mining and foresting. So yeah, that's the end of year 4. There's gonna be 6 picks attacking. So I'm sitting at 3, 3, and 3 on my cohort. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. I still have my favor also from the temple, so we'll see how this goes. Got center, right, center, left, right, and I'm okay at this point, right? Yep, right. So I protected against all of them. So put these cards up here. And I get 3 Valor because of that. 1, 2, 3. That gets me a soldier to start year 5 with. And let me go ahead and get rid of these rival cards, which I never tend to use too often. I don't trade because it's just gonna be more picks attacking. So yeah, not a fan. There's my supply. Okay, okay. So that goes up there. We draw 2 new cards. So either constructed landmarks or completed scout columns. Boy, oh boy. I guess I'll take a chance with the landmarks because I really don't like the scout columns. Maybe the scout columns will be easier. I'll go ahead and I'll try the scout columns, I guess. I never really go for them, and at least that the shape I get over here is pretty good. The 2 extra resources also from the constructed landmarks path card here is pretty helpful. So got that. Now I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 resources. All right, then I get a civilian from my small hotel, a builder from my small workshop. I have my small road so I can progress something 1. I might choose renown again because it's the lowest, and also I get a civilian again. So I'll go for it. Get that going and get another civilian. And with that done, we're on our way with year number 5. There's a lot I need to do this year. I really want to probably build at least the large hotel this year, maybe also the large workshop. I guess if I were to do that, I would also need the large granary. Yikes. Lot to do, lot to do. So let me go ahead and build the large hotel first. So a servant, a builder, and 2 resources gets me a large hotel. I probably should have did that last year if I could have. That gets me a bit of renown and a civilian, which will definitely help to complete some of these tracks down here. And I think at this point I'll also go ahead and spend a servant, a builder, and 2 resources to build the large granary, because that's gonna need done at some point. That'll get me another renown. Since I'm level 7 on this track, I can use this to get a servant. I'll do the classic, spend a civilian on the patrician's track, which gets me some renown, which gets me a civilian back. I'll spend a soldier on the wall guard up here to progress that. That gets me a bit of discipline, which gets me a builder. Okay, I'll spend a builder, a servant, and 2 resources to build the large gardens. So first I'll get a bit of piety. Then I'll go up the trader's track, which gets me a resource. What else? The performer's track gets me a servant. Then I go up the priest track, which gets me a bit more piety, which is good because my piety was falling behind. I go up the this track that I can never pronounce to give me a bit of discipline. And finally the bottom patrician's track gets me a bit more, it just gives me another resource. So that's the large gardens built. I mean, I'll go ahead and spend at least another soldier on the wall guard to get another cohort to be filled in, which I'll just go right. It's pretty much right or left. I'll spend 2 civilians up here on the trader's track. That'll get me a builder, which I'll spend on the fort here. Now that I'm level 7 and I have 4 resources, I can build the large workshop, which will get me a renown and a builder. Sweet, sweet. Okay, since I have a builder out, I can use the courthouse to basically swap them out to end up with another servant. At this point, I'll spend 2 servants up here to do mining and foresting. That'll get me another resource production and another resource, which I can go ahead and spend on the wall. Gets me a bit of renown, and then I can spend civilian down here on patricians. Gets me more renown, which gets me a civilian back. I'll spend 1 civilian on the patrician's track down here to get a soldier, which I'll spend up here on the wall guard. I'll spend both of these civilians on the performer's track to get another soldier, put them on the wall guard, which gets me a bit of discipline. And finally, I'll place this last soldier on the wall guard to get me a cohort. I'll go with the left one. And I have this builder left, which I'll just use on the fort. And that'll get me another civilian. Which I think, since the performer's track is the farthest behind, I'll just use that civilian there and hope for the best. That is the end of year 5. I'm gonna have 8 picks attacking. So let's see, I have 4, 3, and 4. I also still have my favor for my small temples, so I should be okay, but 8 picks, I mean, they could really end up on one side, so it could go horribly wrong if the cards are not in my favor. Center is what I definitely don't want to see too many of. So, whoops, there's 2 cards sticking. So we got right and right. Yeah, there's right again, that's okay. Center, that's not the worst. Left, that's what I want to see. But yeah, more left, that's good. And another right. I'm okay. Yeah. Sweet. So I'll put all these back, and because of that, I get 3 Valor. That will get me another soldier to start this final year with, which is always appreciated. And get rid of these rival cards and get some new ones for this final year. And so let's see what my supply card is. All right, put that up here, and final 2 cards either got collected goods or definitely completed wall sections. So I will put that up there. That gets me an extra civilian and resource. Then based on my board, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 resources. All right, then I have 2 hotels, so I get 2 civilians. I have 2 workshops, so I get 2 builders. It's crazy, I've never had that happen before. I only have my 1 small road, so I'll use it to get me a bit of piety, which will get me a servant. And with that, we're on our way with the final year. There's just so much to do. I don't even really know where to start. So I guess I'll start with a builder on the fort. And I need to build the large road, so I'll do that. 2 servants, a builder, and 2 resources gets me a large road. That lets me either increase my renown or valor. I'll definitely go valor, because that gets me a soldier, and then I'll spend 2 soldiers on the wall. That'll fill in that and get me a bit of discipline. Discipline gets me a builder, and I'll go ahead and spend that builder on the wall guard to fill in the last spot. Get me another cohort. I'll go with the center, just to keep them all pretty even. Then what? Since it's the last year, I can use this again over here and get another servant. I guess I'll just slowly start completing these tracks over here. So I'll spend 2 on the trader's track to get some renown and a resource, which I actually have a lot of resources now. So nice compared to last fort where I was just always lacking resources. I'll spend another builder on the fort, which will get me another civilian, and then I can go ahead and spend, what is that, 3 resources on the wall. And the first will get me a civilian. Next is nothing. Then I will get some renown, and I can fill in another cohort. I guess I'll go with the left. That'll get me a bit more valor. So then I'll use the courthouse to do the 2 swaps to basically get me an extra servant. I'm gonna do something that might be a bit weird. I'm gonna spend that servant, this builder, and 2 resources to build the medium temple, mainly because I just need 1 piety, so I'm at least at 10 on, I'm now on 10 on each track over here. So as long as I can get the 75 victory points, I might beat this on my first try. So I'll spend 3 civilians on the performer's track. The first gets me a servant. The next gets me some renown, which gets me a civilian back. And the last will get me a builder. Sweet. I will then, of course, spend a civilian on the priest track. That'll get me a servant. Civilian on this track. That gets me a builder. Civilian on this bottom track gets me a bit of renown. And then, oh, see, I was looking for a way to get piety. I forgot that you can get piety on the renown track. Oh well, I guess that's not the worst thing. I'll then spend both builders on the wall. That'll get me a civilian, which I can place on the patricians, finishing that track, which is pretty sweet. I will then send the soldier on the fort, finishing the fort. That'll get me a bit of discipline, and I can fill in another cohort up top. I'll just choose, I don't know. I'll go right, and that'll get me a bit of valor. Then, I can spend all 3 resources on the wall. The first will get me a civilian. Next will get me nothing. The third will get me a cohort. I'm gonna go with the left one again, mainly because it gets me some discipline, which gets me some valor, which gets me a soldier. I'll spend 2 servants to fill in the temple. And that'll get me 2 piety, which will get me a servant back. I can then spend these 3 servants on the mining and foresting up here, which will get me another resource production and another resource. I can spend this civilian on the temple to get me another piety, and then I can get another favor. I still haven't used the favor that I got for my first small temple, which is, I guess, good. I'll spend the resource on the Sippy, and finally, I will spend this soldier to actually use one of my rival cards to get that, and do that 1, 2... like that. That'll get me 2 resources, which then I'll use on the Sippy. And that'll let me get another cohort to fill in. At this point, it doesn't really matter, so I guess I'll go with the best odds of having the center. That'll get me some more valor. And I think that's it. So since I used a person here, I will have 11 picks attacking me this final year. Okay, so I have all 6 cohorts here, 5, 5. I still have 2 favors, so I would be shocked if any got through, but crazier things have happened. So let's see, we got right, center, left, already off to an amazing start. left, okay. Let's stop with the lefts, it's kind of getting old. All right, I'm okay with that. We got center, okay. Right, okay, center, fantastic, and right. I survived it. I didn't use a single favor. Wow. I got really lucky with the picks. So that was year 6. So I get, what, 4 valor? So first gets me a bit of discipline. 2, 3, 4. And yeah, with that, we clear these out of here. And I could go ahead and add up my final score down here. So we get 16 renown. I get, what was that, 13 piety. I'm up to 20 valor. And 18 discipline. Then when we go ahead and add up the path cards up here, I think 15. That seems pretty good for my path cards. Final disdain, I got none. So let's see what I got. All right, so we got 16 plus 13 plus 20 plus 18 plus 15. 82. I actually got it on my first try. That's insane. 82 is a really good score too. I needed 75 plus just to beat it. I have the large granary, the large road, the large hotel, the large workshop. We're all good there. And then, yeah, I have 10 plus victory points on each attribute track down here. So I got both the goal and the challenge on my first go. That makes me feel good after how many attempts it took me on the last fort. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, a like would be greatly appreciated. I'll be back next time doing fort number 6, so subscribe if you want to catch that. And if you want to see one of my recent playthroughs, click up there in the top right corner of the screen.